Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. First of all, welcome to all of you to the 115th General Assembly. It's a time of excitement, it's a time of transition, it's a time of unique challenges for all of us, and a time of unique opportunities. Especially for the new people, as you may be aware, we have some traditions here. The Organization Day is the day for the Speaker to have the opportunity to set forth his vision for the future of Indiana. Our tradition here is that on the first day we return, the minority has the opportunity to talk just a bit about the direction of the session, the direction of the state, hopefully the direction for the people of the state of Indiana. A few of us, many of you actually, have participated in a college leadership group that comes here and meets in the chamber. It's usually during the session. It's a group sponsored by Representative Mike Pence, part of the National Day of Prayer movement. Group of kids, Representative Clinker, Representative Porter, many have been here, Representative Welch, many times before. They were here last Friday, so we're just a couple of us here, Representative Noe, Senator Delp, myself. And as we talked with those young people as they have their weekend of reflection about their own leadership and their future, I posed to them a question that most of us first heard in 1992. It was during the vice presidential debates, a very professional Al Gore, a very professional hometown boy, Dan Quayle, and right in the middle was a crusty old guy that I didn't know much about. And when it got to be his time to talk, he said, "Who am I and why am I here?" Most of you think you saw that night, but what you really saw was Phil Hartman's Saturday Night Live imitation that went for about a year that was really pretty humorous. And that, coupled with the fact that when they got to a tough question, Admiral Stockdale said something along the lines of, "I'm out of ammo," people kind of dismissed him and dismissed that question. But it's really a question I want to pose not only to those young people, but I think we should each pose to ourselves today. Who are you and why are you here? I know most of you pretty well, and everybody has their own story about who they are. Most of you that I know why you're here. You're here to improve the quality of life for every Hoosier. And we don't always agree on the direction for that. We don't always agree how we might improve the quality of life. But we all agree that that's our major chore here. Our major task at hand is to improve the quality of life for every Hoosier. We have a little bit of a different role than we've had over the last 2 years. So it's a time of transition for us as well. But we've been here before, together, as leaders in the minority and the majority. And I can tell you that we're committed to working with you in a new and renewed atmosphere of partnership. As I looked back and chatted with a few people today about the times we've disagreed and the times we've agreed, a few things leaped to mind for me. The first goes back to 2002 when we together put together a pretty dynamic economic development package for the state of Indiana. We had our Right Track Indiana package. You all had your Energize Indiana package. Well, you were in the majority, so the final product called Energize Indiana. But it had ideas from both sides of this aisle, from the Senate, from downstairs, from out in the hall, to come together, compromise, to move Indiana in the right direction. We did it over the last 2 years. Not always very pretty. We did it on the Inspector General. That was one that wasn't very pretty, but ultimately, we put your ideas, our ideas, the governor's ideas together to make a good piece of legislation happen. I'm not going to go over the times where we weren't able to do that because I don't want to see us go down that path again this year. But we pledge to you that we will do our very best to focus on partnership rather than partisanship, to focus on the policy of a matter rather than the politics of the matter, and to focus on cooperation rather than conflict. I really mean that. Now, I've been here long enough, this is my 21st session, and I've been here long enough to know that we will stumble and fall by accident sometimes. Gets heated around here because we all believe very much so in our hearts what we're arguing for. Sometimes we'll stumble on purpose. Not a good thing. I just know it'll happen, but I can tell you that we will do our very best to work with you and not against you as we approach the task at hand. And that will not be easy because we have some very difficult issues before us that we must deal with together. We have some very difficult proposals that our governor, who is taking not even a breath as he tries to turn Indiana into the direction he wants it to go, will hand us, and we'll have to debate and work with here. And it seems pretty tough, but I always take comfort in what Paul Harvey says. When it looks like these times are difficult, it helps to remember that times have always been difficult. There's always been times like these. On the campaign trail, we had a 12-point program. Many of you got a copy of it. It's printed up. There's some copies of it still around here. It's really 50 points of what we would do from the majority. We met last week and talked about, we thought 50 points from the minority might be a little aggressive. So we're going to focus on 4. I know there's going to be a lot of other things that we're going to have to talk about, but we're going to focus on 4 and challenge you to work with us on those. First and foremost, this has to be a year of protecting taxpayers, state taxpayers, property taxpayers. And as we approach this important budget session, we would challenge you to do what we did. It's tough medicine, but we did it on several different fronts. Number 1, we must have an honestly balanced budget without general tax increases in 2007. That was hard. Hard for us, tough medicine to take, but we cannot let ourselves fall back on the old habit of transferring funds and calling it balanced, taking things off budget and calling it balanced, or raising taxes at a very difficult time. We also would challenge you to do what we did for property taxpayers, and that was make it so homeowners pay no additional property taxes in 2007. We essentially froze homestead taxes in 2006 on the average, and we would challenge you to do the same thing. We would also challenge you to keep the process open. One of the things that I really want to thank Representative Jeff Espick for was avoiding, maybe not eliminating, but avoiding one of the habits of Republicans and Democrats alike in the past on Ways and Means, and that was walking into a meeting with a 400, 300-page amendment that people hadn't seen or had the opportunity to deal with before and expecting people to vote on it immediately. The other thing that happened in this last session, and I would challenge you to do it again, is let the public see the budget for 48 hours before it is voted on. That's what happened this last session. People said it couldn't be done, that we were crazy. We couldn't get people to vote for it, House or Senate, without that. But the public saw it, the press saw it, members of both parties and in both houses saw it, and we would challenge you to do the same. Hold the line on property taxes in the state budget. Second, there's been a lot of talk about education, but education reform is more than just full-day kindergarten and textbooks. It is time for a full and comprehensive debate on education reform and education improvement in Indiana today. We took tough tasks in that as well. Money following children and not just funding institutions. It's easy just to say raise everybody 1%, everyone will be happy, but we have to have the tough medicine of money funding child's educations and not institutions. It's time to look at teacher incentives and accountability. Why shouldn't we pay the best teachers to teach in the toughest schools or the hardest subjects? Pay them extra to do that. Let teachers who want to earn an additional degree or take a higher and tougher test do so and receive more pay. Why do we continue to administer I-STEP in the fall to discover what students have forgotten over the summer rather than in the spring to discover what they've learned? These things need to change, and as we do them, we need to give more options to Hoosier families. More options. My family has plenty of options. We exercise them. A lot of families don't have those options, and we need to be sure it happens. The third item that we need to focus on is continuing to create economic opportunity and security for every Hoosier. Now, we did a lot over the last 2 years. We've done a lot together over the last 6 years to improve our economy together. And while some would say the task is done, there's been high-profile headlines, Toyota, Rolls-Royce, these are all good things, the task is far from over. Our side, and hopefully yours, hope to focus on the next generation of job creation in this state, and that's the small entrepreneur. Turning to that next 80% of the jobs that will be created in this state over the next decade, 80% of which will come from small entrepreneurs and not the Toyotas and Hondas of the world. There's a lot of ways that we want to talk to you about doing that. Some are organizational, like a complete rework of the Small Business Development Corporation. Some might be smaller, like bringing some of the big business tax incentives that we have out there down to the little guy's level. Fourth item, we have to make our neighborhoods safe again. And it's not just a few neighborhoods, it's almost every neighborhood. We have a lot of ideas on that. One's tough, one some of you aren't going to like. But Indiana needs to join those who say violent felons will pay 85% of the time that they're sentenced to in state prison. Today we're below 50%. And yes, we want to give people incentives to behave well, to get educated, but when we are releasing people who are violent offenders that have served less than half of their sentence, many of us say enough's enough. We're going to be talking about the death penalty this session. I know it. I've seen it on both sides. And there's some things that I think we need to discuss, and I know many of us will support. One is Representative Walorski's bill to have a mandatory death penalty for the death of a police officer in the line of duty. We're having police officers killed wantonly in this state today, in fact in our nation, and we have to draw the line. There's been talk of new registries, new victim notifications. These are good things. Hoosiers want safe neighborhoods, and we have to give it to them. A lot of other things that we're going to be talking about. You've got proposals on the health care front. The governor has proposals on the health care front. We've brought hopefully some good suggestions to the forefront that we want to talk with you about. We'll focus on consumer-based and market-based solutions for this problem. Personally, I don't think that we can just have a whole another 20% of our state's population on state-funded, state-issued welfare-type insurance. We just can't afford it. So we're going to have to find solutions that will bring the market to bear on this as well. There are a lot of other issues we're going to deal with, controversial ones. On top of the death penalty, I'm sure we'll deal with abortion issues. We'll deal with issues of marriage. We'll deal with issues of minimum wage and military benefits. A lot of these things we're going to be able to agree on, some perhaps not. But I do pledge to you today that we will do so to the best of our ability in a professional way that seeks partnership where we can find it, agreement where we can find it, cooperation where we can find it, and a good faith, nonpartisan argument where we can do that as well. That's our pledge to you today. We will seek to work with you. We'll seek to work with you in a new, renewed sense of cooperation, and we'll attempt to do it with renewed professionalism. So as we start, I go back to Admiral Stockdale. Who are you and why are you here? It's my hope that at the end of the session we can look back together proudly knowing who we are and why each of us are here.